Hi dreamers, you know me, I like to get philosophical and even weepy about stocks, but to heck with that today. I want to show you what I'm seeing. I want you to look through my eyes right now and see the opportunities everywhere. Let's take a look. So today I'm going to go to my TD Ameritrade account for this particular chart. Let's start with Realty Income ticker symbol O. You can go to the tab Charts, and here you can see the price. But down below, you can see the history of the yield. And you can see right now, O is at a 5.16%. Now, as I go backwards in time, you can see how that yield drops into the fours. And really, over the past 2 years, has pretty much stayed in the fours until you hit that one particular day in 2020 when the market crashed. That was the day that the yield went all the way up to 5.68. If you had pulled the trigger right at that moment, you might have gotten the biggest yield on O. But before that, you can see that Realty Income's yield was all the way down into the threes. And actually, in the years prior to 2020, it fluctuated in the fours and in the threes. And so from the moment of that crash in 2020, all the way through the last several years, it's been hovering up and down in the 4% range. And so today's yield of over 5% is a real opportunity. Let's take a look at another one. Franklin Resources or Ben. So if we look down at Ben, once again, you can see that if you pull the trigger on that fateful day in the beginning of 2020, you might have gotten a yield of 6.3. which would have been a steal. But in the years prior to that, Ben's yield was well into the 3s and 2% range. And so that was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to pick up Ben. And I picked up as many shares as I possibly could in this time frame. But since then, Ben's yield has gone down back into sub 4% yield territory until now, where it's back up into the 5s. Let's take a look at another example. How about a Canadian example? BCE, which you know is one of my favorites. As we look at the historical yield here, you can see that as of today, it's 6.62%. But in the years prior, it was under 6% into the 5s. And you can even see that it's above where it was in March of 2020 because BCE did actually really well in COVID and is such a steady stock. In fact, if you keep going back into the history of BCE, you can see that it pretty much has never been into the 6% range, which is why it's such a great deal right now. Let's take a look at another one. How about Fortis? Fortis is at a 4.46% yield right now, but just a couple of months ago, it was well below 3.5. And you have to go pretty far back into history, all the way back to 2014, before you get into the territory it is in now. So we're talking about a good decade of time since the last time Fortis has been above 4.5. How about another one? Bank of Nova Scotia. And once again, we can see that in March of 2020, if you had gotten it right at the bottom, you might have gotten a 6.67 yield. But then over the last several years, it's gone all the way back down into the 4% range until recently when it's back up to 6.43%. And again, before March of 2020, it was a good decade of time that you would have to wait before you would get anywhere close to that above 6% range. And that was only in the financial crash of 2008-2009. So basically what I'm saying is that some of these opportunities are a once-in-a-decade opportunity to pick up shares at a percentage that is likely not to last. How about we take a look at a tech example that's not quite into the 4% range, but almost, Avgo. And here you can see the yield is almost 3.8, but that yield over the last couple of years has been well under 3%, down to almost 2%, and at the very bottom of the market, which our prices will probably not see again. For a while, that yield was 4.72%. So at 3.8, it's a pretty good yield for Avgo. And how about one more? Let's take a look at an ETF, SCHD. So at the very bottom of the market, we were looking at 3.83%. And before that, the yield on SCHD was in the high twos, like 2.78, 2.6, and pretty much was in that range all the way back to 2013. But right now, that yield is almost 3.7%. I wanted to point out these examples today because there are 4 to 6% yield opportunities everywhere. And now is really a golden time to pick some of these up if you can. As my good friend Warren has said, opportunities come infrequently. When it rains gold, put out the bucket, not the thimble. Happy stock shopping, everyone. Well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, I encourage you to do your own research, then implement and learn by putting it into practice. As a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor, so keep in mind these videos are for entertainment and inspiration only. I'll see you on the flip side.